They are the punishment elite, born to compete, never retreat. Living or dead, always ahead, fed by your dread.
Hello everyone, my name is Not Markiplier, and welcome to 5 war heroes listed in an arbitrary order.
Cross the snow of Lazio, where no soldiers sleep and where hell 6 feet deep. The deathless weight, there's no debate. So charge and attack, going to hell and back.
Audie Murphy, as the song states, was born in Kingston, Texas on June 20th, 1925. He had actually lied about his age to join the military in case you didn't register the math immediately to yourself. In the European theater in 1945 is when Murphy would earn himself the Medal of Honor. Using my high-tech war recreations tool provided by the FBI, CIA, the Illuminati, and the world government, I can show you what it may have looked like. So, here we have Murphy, and then here we have his platoon. They're in a tank, and this is an M1 carbine. The Germans, they shoot the tank. That is not good. And so Murphy orders his men to retreat. So they retreat, but he does not. Instead of retreating, he goes up and then to the M1 carbine up here and returns fire on the Germans for an entire hour. By himself, all alone, for an hour on a flaming tank. And he ended up killing or wounding 50 German soldiers before he ran out of ammo, which is what caused him to also retreat back to his men. And then he would proceedingly lead him and his men back to the fight so they could finish it. Oh, and if you were possibly thinking that I might have misread something or been over-exaggerating what happened necessarily, in the end, Murphy would earn the United States Medal of Honor, the French Legion of Honor, Grade Chevalier, Knight, and many, many other awards. So many, in fact, that there is an entire Wikipedia page in and of itself dedicated to his different awards, to go along with the original one. Murphy would struggle with PTSD for the rest of his life, and at one point would write one of his most famous poems from his book To Hell and Back, detailing some of his battles. The famous poem in question being The Crosses Grow on Anzio. He was also an actor for a stretch, starring in a movie about Billy the Kid. He died in a plane crash in 1971. A memorial for him was built at the crash site. Additionally, his grave in Arlington, he had specifically requested before he died that unlike other Medal of Honor recipients, his tombstone was not gold-leafed, and looked like any other soldier's tombstone.
Into the fire through trenches and mud, so Belgium and Ireland with war in his blood, leading the charge into hostile barrage. Hussein, you're right for the front line.
Adrian Carton de Viart was born on May 5th, 1880. At age 20, after being born into Belgian aristocracy, lied about his age saying he was 25 to join the Second Boer War. He would get kicked out not after very long, but this was his first combat and military experience. In World War II, he was shot through the eye, also in the ear, lost his hand in 1915 after pulling it off his own fingers because the doctors refused to amputate. In the same year, he would end up getting shot through the skull and the ankle. In World War II, he was first stationed in Poland in 1939. And at one point was in a chase with Germans and Soviets in pursuit and only barely got out, and proceedingly went on to Romania, where he barely got out of there as well through a fake passport he had on the same day that the Romanian president, who was pro-Allied forces, was assassinated. He also marched soldiers across mountains in Norway after all of his crippling injuries, just to be immediately attacked by Germans. He recommended that they should retreat, but he was told to hold the position for political reasons, so he did. Wasn't until much longer that a retreat would be made available. He was an Italian prisoner of war for 2 years, and not a month after returning to England, he was sent to China. Although this wasn't for more war, this one was to be a representative in China. As people who know more than me have summarized, he served in the First World War, and Second World War. He was shot in the face, head, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, and ear, was blinded in his left eye, survived 2 plane crashes, and tunneled out of a prisoner of war camp, tore off his own fingers when a doctor declined to amputate him. After all this, he would end up writing, "Frankly, I enjoyed the war." He died peacefully in his bed at 83 years old in 1963. Adrian Carton de Wiart would earn the Victorian Cross, was the commander of the Legion of Honor in France, and would go on to earn many other medals in his time. But this was not enough to get a Wikipedia page of its own this time, sadly.
Where the legend will arise, and he's flying higher, the king of the sky, he's flying to pass and he's flying to hide, higher, an eye for an eye, the legend will never die. First to the scene, he is a lethal machine, he's not the April and the tide is turning. Fire at will, it is the thrill of the kill, falling the nation down with engines burning. Embrace the flame, red squadron leader. Call out his name, Rotekaflieger.
Much like France, now we'll be switching sides to talk about Manfred von Richthofen, better known as the Red Baron. Born on May 2nd, 1918, he was one of the most legendary, if not the most legendary, fighter pilot of World War I, being called the Ace of Aces, with 80 officially credited air combat victories. Originally, he was actually a cavalryman, but when Germany realized horses are dumb and planes are cool, he became a pilot. Der Rote Kampfflieger, or the Red Fighter Pilot, wasn't just his metaphorical name. He genuinely painted his fighter plane bright red. The Baron part of his name was true too, although in Germany, Baron was not a given name nor a hereditary title, since all members of the family were entitled to it even during the lifetime of their father. Note that you still needed to be in nobility to get the Baron name. It was just all members of a noble family would have the name Baron. His first recorded air victory was against 2nd Lieutenant Lionel Morris, and after this battle, he would actually have a silver cup engraved with the date of death and make of the plane created, and then he would honor the fallen enemy by placing it at the site of the plane crash. He did this 60 times before silver became too rare in blockaded Germany, and so he stopped the practice rather than use base metal. Major Lionel Hawker, a British ace, would be Manfred's most famous enemy he took down. For reference, Lionel Hawker was considered an ace and one of the best pilots in Britain with only 7 confirmed air victories. Manfred had 80. After the long dogfight, Manfred would think that he needed a more agile plane, even if it was slower. However, when the Albatros D3 he switched to had a wing crack after just 2 dogfights, he would switch back to the Albatros D2s or Halberstadt D2s. He would only switch to the plane most associated with him, the Fokker DR-1 triplane, in July 1917. He made many suggestions to the development of the Fokker DR-7, but he would be killed before he could ever fly it. On April 21st, 1918, just after 11 a.m., he was fatally shot while flying in France. This was because he flew far lower than he should have, in response to seeing one of his cousins being attacked. Later on, people would question whether or not his 80 air victories was exaggerated for propaganda. However, Manfred's victories were unusually well documented, and some British historians claim that the real number is most likely over 100 air combat victories. He earned himself a collection of awards in his lifetime as well.
86 and all the way into the fires of hell. They are gone, a hero to be. Enter the wall from over the sea. Intervene 1918, all the way from Tennessee into 123.
Alvin Cullum York, also known as Sergeant York, was also from the United States and one of the most decorated soldiers from the war. Born on December 13th, 1887 in rural Tennessee, he would be drafted into World War I in October 1918, and he had actually objected to joining before he did. He would end up in the 82nd Division as an infantry private and was sent to France. In that same month, Private First Class York would be tasked with infiltrating a German machine gun position. York and his fellow soldiers would attack and kill several German soldiers, and the officer responsible for the position would fire his entire pistol magazine at York, but fail to hit him even once. In the end, not only did York take the position and all 35 machine guns, but he captured 132 German prisoners. He would be promoted to sergeant and was given the Distinguished Service Cross, which was later upgraded to the Medal of Honor. He would also be given the French Legion of Honor, since his achievements were in France. He would also receive awards in Italy. He did attempt to enlist back into the army in World War II, but at 54 years old, overweight, near diabetic, and having signs of arthritis, he was not allowed back in. Instead, he became a major of the Army Signal Corps and toured training camps and participated in bond drives to support the war effort. Sergeant York would comply with the press on multiple occasions, which would make his name very recognizable across the United States. He would end up employing a secretary for many years, Arthur S. Bushing, whom of which would manage and write a lot of his public statements. York denied a film version of his life for many, many years, but gave in 1940 when he wanted money to fund an interdenominational Bible school, and so made a contract with a very persistent Hollywood director. When the film was made, it was the highest-grossing film of 1941, although it included many falsities towards what happened in York's real life. Although I guess that's what the based on a true story part is for. He would earn $150,000 for this movie, which resulted in a 10-year legal battle with the IRS. In the end, York would end up getting the chance to open up his Bible school. York struggled with health issues most of his life, but only at age 76 would a cerebral hemorrhage take him.
Invoke the spirits of the wind. Under fire, a ghost that rules the battlefield. Move between the lines, a soldier breaking the confines. An anchor man and a rifle, a marksman and a scout revealed. Makes his way from trench to trench alone, moving undetected.
Francis Pegamugabo was born in Parry Sound, Ontario on March 9, 1891. With the outbreak of World War I, Francis decided to join the Canadian Expeditionary Force, being made almost directly after Britain declared war on Germany. In April 1915, he would fight at the Second Battle of Ypres, however you say that, the first battle where Germans began using chlorine gas, so breathing would kill you. This was also the battle where he began his reputation as the most effective World War I sniper and a scout. After this, he was promoted to Lace Corporal. He would participate in the Battle of the Somme in 1916, where he sustained a leg injury, but recovered in time for the movement to Belgium. He would earn the military medal for this, despite his higher-up originally nominating him for the Distinguished Conduct Medal. He would earn a bar for this medal in the Second Battle of Passchendaele, when he played a very important role as a link between the units on the 1st Battalion's flank. He would earn a second bar for his medal during the Battle of the Scarpe, where he ran into no man's land to retrieve ammo, as his company was almost out of ammo. He's one of 39 Canadians to earn the honor of a medal with 2 bars. After his military career, he would become a politician. Thankfully, this wouldn't end like the other much more famous person who went from World War I soldier to politician. Overall, he wasn't as publicly recognized as the rest of these heroes, but his role was just as important.
Strike at zero hour with overwhelming firepower. They're fueled by the fear in their enemy's eyes. It's a shock troop infiltration, a fast and violent escalation. Out of the trenches, the stormtroopers rise. Jaggers led the way, the pioneers would join the fray. Initiative gained, advancement sustained. Lead through direct command as they're advancing through the land, encircling their flanks and ravage the ranks. Expose the reinforcements, destroying the lines. New doctrine in combat alliance.
On April 20th, Nope, that's not the right date. It's April 21st. April 20th is Hitler's birthday. Happy birthday, dear Führer. Happy birthday, dear Führer. Happy birthday, dear Führer. Happy birthday to you. And now let's go kill all the Jews.